Assalamu alaikum. So, brother Solomon, I think you should be able to hear me now. I'm sorry, my mic was disconnected. Jazakallah for your message. So, if you are still connected, hopefully now you can listen to me. So, now continuing on the topic, the next point under discussion is that brother Solomon, if you can also message if the voice is okay now. Should be okay. So the next point under discussion is about certain timings which are very good for the acceptance of prayer. Of course, Allah Ta'ala listens to our prayers all the time, but there are certain times which have been specially appointed by Allah as the times of prayer, as the times for asking Allah for something. So we should specially pray to Allah during those times. And if we do that, inshallah, our prayers will be accepted even more. So the first one that he mentions is on the day of Arafat during Hajj. And he mentions that it was the practice of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Awwal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that on the day of Arafat, on the day of Hajj, after Zuhur prayer, he would ask all the attendees to stay seated and pray so that their prayers may be combined with the prayers of those who are praying in the plain of Arafat, and they will be accepted by Allah. So day of Arafat, day of Hajj is a special day which is mentioned by Allah as the day of acceptance of dua. Then the month of Ramadan, it is a special month for the acceptance of prayer. Then number 3, the day of Friday. There is a special moment on this day when all the prayers are accepted, according to one hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, according to some, this time is that when the Imam sits down between the two sermons, meaning when he delivers the khutbah in Sama or Tausug or English or Tagalog, and then he sits down, and then before he stands up and recites khutbah Saniya. So in between that time, according to some, whatever prayers you ask for, those prayers will be accepted. According to some other people, it is the time before sunset. And according to some, it is the time before Asr, etc. So we are not told about the exact time or that exact moment when all the prayers are accepted on the day of Friday, but there is a special moment. So it is very similar to the Laylatul Qadr, that we are not informed about the exact moment of Laylatul Qadr. So we have to search for it. Similarly, on the day of Friday, we are not told about the exact moment. So we have to search for that moment. According to some people, it is during Iqama and Azan, etc. So there are many narrations about this. So you have to search for that moment, meaning you should spend the day of Friday, especially in dua, and your dua will be accepted. Then number 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that he listens to the prayers in the last 1/3 of the night. meaning the time of the Hajjud prayer. And it is mentioned in the hadith that Allah Ta'ala comes down to the lowest heaven. And what that means is that Allah Ta'ala is extremely close to human beings at that time. And He announces that, is there someone who may ask from me so that I may grant him his wishes? So whereas other times we are the one asking Allah that, oh Allah, please grant me my wishes. But at the time of the Hajjud prayer, Allah is Himself asking us, do you want to ask me for anything? I will approve your request. So the time of the Tahajjud is a special time for the acceptance of prayer. And this is not only mentioned in Hadith, but also in Holy Quran it is mentioned, the Wabil Ashari hum yastaghfirun, that at the time of Suhoor, at the time of dawn, they ask Allah for His forgiveness and they are given. So uh, it is a time for the acceptance of prayer, and one of the best times for the acceptance of prayer is the time of the Tahajjud. Number 5, he mentions that during the takbir of first salat, iqama on the first salat, that when the iqama is being called, that time is also a special time for the acceptance of prayer. Number 6, during rain, when it is raining, it is the time of the mercy of Allah, and we should pray during that time, and our prayers will be accepted more. Number 7, during a battle which is fought for the sake of Allah. So now, unfortunately or fortunately, we do not have to do jihad in that manner anymore because the requirements are not there. So even if someone is doing tabligh, he is out uh, in the battlefield of tabligh, of dawah. So at that time, it is also very important to do dua. Number 8, on on the way to the masjid, when you're walking to the masjid, according to one of the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is also a very opportune time for the prayers to be accepted. So all of you, alhamdulillah, you walk to the masjid, so you should utilize that time to do dua, to pray to Allah, and it is a time for the acceptance of prayer. Then during azan, before it was mentioned during iqama, during takbir, now it is mentioned during azan. Allah also listens to prayers. So instead of talking while the azan is being called, we should pray at that time and prayers will be accepted. Number 10, at the time of sunset, that is also mentioned as one of the times of the acceptance of dua. Number 11, the time between azan and iqamat, the in between time, when the first azan is already called, but iqamat has not yet called, we had not starting our salat yet. So during that time, instead of sitting and talking, instead of looking at your phone, etc., you should do dua, and inshallah, your dua will be accepted. Number 12, when one wakes up in the middle of sleep, that you're sleeping, all of a sudden you wake up because you're thirsty, you have to go to washroom, or you see a bad dream, or for whatever reason, when you wake up in the middle of the night, it is mentioned in one of the ahadith that the prayers of that time are specially accepted. Number 13, when reading or listening to the Holy Quran, at that time it is also a very great time for the acceptance of prayer. Number 14, when a believer is dying, meaning when a mu'min, a believer, is near his death, he's on his deathbed. At that time, dua is accepted because it is a time of anguish. Your heart is in pain because of the pain of your brother. And because the angels of mercy are descending to take the soul of our brother who's about to pass away. So prayers are accepted at that time also. Number 15, and this is a very important one, in a meeting where Allah and His messengers or messenger are being remembered, meaning in the majalisul zikr. So this is a long hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where it is mentioned that every day there are certain angels and it is their job to go throughout the world and look for majalisul zikr, look for such places where Allah and His Prophet are being remembered. Meaning, instead of talking about worldly matters, instead of talking about, basketball game or your how much money you made or worldly things, etc. You're talking about Allah, you're talking about the Prophet of Allah, you're talking about Hadith. So right now, listening to this dars is one of the example of that majalisul zikr. So in that Hadith, it is mentioned that there are certain angels, it is their job to find such meetings and then go back and report to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is mentioned that every day they return back. So Allah asks them that where did you go and what did you find? So they say, oh Allah, we went and we saw a group of people who were gathered to remember you and your Prophet. So Allah said, when they were gathered there, what were they asking me for? So the angels would reply, they were asking for your mercy, they were asking for your forgiveness, they were asking for protection from fire. And to each of these prayers, Allah Ta'ala would say that I have accepted, I will have mercy upon them, I will forgive them, and hell has been forbidden upon these people. So all the prayers that people do during such times, they are accepted. So then the angels would say, oh Allah, there was one person who was there who did not go there to listen to the zikr, who did not go there to listen to religious talk, spiritual talk, talk about God and His Prophet. Rather, he was there for a personal business. So, sometimes people say, you want to meet me? Okay, you can meet me at the masjid. So he was there not to listen to the dars, but rather he was there to do some kind of business transaction. So Allah would say, I have forgiven him also, because they are the people humul qawmul julasa la yashqa jalisuhum, that they are a special group of people, that anyone who sits with them, la yashqa jalisuhum, that person who sits with them, he will not be an unfortunate person. Meaning whatever he prays for, he will also be lucky, he will also be a fortunate person who just by the fact of being there, Allah would forgive him. So the actual words are, yes, humul qawmul julasa la yashqa jalisuhum. So the meetings which take place for the remembrance of Allah are very special meeting, and prayers are accepted in such places. Number 16, sajda is a very important time to pray to Allah, to ask Allah for His mercy and for the acceptance of prayer. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned that the prayers are most accepted in the position of sajda, sujood. Number 17, when breaking your fast at the time of iftar, that is also a time for acceptance of prayer. That is why we do dua sometimes when we have dars right before iftar. We do dua because according to hadith, it is a time of acceptance of prayer. And number 18, he mentions that whenever you find that your heart is specially moved due to some kind of pain or some kind of anguish, or you are especially feeling helpless, that is the time of acceptance of prayer, because Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in the Holy Quran that it is Allah who accepts the prayer of a muzdar, meaning a person who is in anguish, who is helpless. So these are different times which are mentioned in Quran and Hadith about special timings for the acceptance of dua, and we should take benefit from these times. Next heading the author of this article has made is about such places where prayers are accepted. Just how there are special times when prayers are accepted more often than other, there are also certain places in which prayers are accepted more. And the author mentions this first, that places do not have any particular significance in themselves. All places are holy. One of the signs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's greatness, meaning one of the distinctive features which are given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that it is mentioned, Ju'ilat liyal ardu masjida. The Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the entire world has been made a masjid for me. Meaning I can pray, you can pray anywhere. It is not like other religions where you have to go to a mandir or a synagogue or a church. Rather, any place can turn into a masjid. You can do sajda there, you can pray there. But certain places, the author writes that the certain places, they allow for concentration and presence of mind, and for the soul to be specially present in front of Allah. and because of that, the prayers are more accepted. And then he writes that the saints of the past, Awliyaullah, they have mentioned, and he says it has come in my experience as well, that certain places which have been sanctified by Allah, which have been made holy or designated as holy and blessed by Allah Himself, prayers are specially accepted in those places. So number one in that list is of course Kaaba. If anyone has a chance to go to Makkah in holy Kaaba, prayers are specially accepted. Number two, the field of Arafat, prayers are specially accepted in Maidanul Arafah. And number three, the Rawda or the tomb of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That these are places which have been sanctified by Allah, they have been blessed by Allah, they have been made holy by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So prayers are accepted there. So like I said, this article is written by one of the companions of Hazrat Imam Mahdi, promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam, and this he was living in Qadian. So he writes, in India also, Allah has provided us with opportunities for such holy places. So he specially mentions a few places. Number one being Masjid Mubarak in Qadian. And he says that when he recently moved to Qadian, he in 1905, he said that he had a chance to pray there for 2 hours when no one else was there. He said during those times I asked for 3 prayers, which seemed impossible at that time. Not extremely difficult, but he says impossible at that time, looking at my condition. And he said, by the grace of Allah, all 3 of those prayers were accepted. So, like I mentioned before, all places are holy, but certain places which have a relationship with the holy ones of Allah, like Kaaba, like Rawdatul Rasul, like Maidan al Arafat, all of these places, they are specially sanctified. Similarly, he mentions another place, that the heavenly graveyard or Bihishti Maqbara in Qadian. It is also a very blessed place because Allah Ta'ala has revealed about that place that all types of rahmah, unzila fiha kullu rahmatin, that all type of rahmah, they are continuously being showered at that place. And he mentions especially the place where the promised Messiah ﷺ is himself buried, is very holy, very sanctified, and prayers are accepted. Let me tell you, he mentions another point. Let me say that first, and then I will explain something. He says that he mentions a story that there is another companion of the promised Messiah ﷺ who is very famous for the acceptance of dua. So much so that sometimes people ask him to come to their house and pray for them. He says that one time he was in a very big difficulty and he prayed a lot, but that difficulty was not going away. So look at the relationship between these companions, that when they talk to each other, they're not talking about, worldly matters. So one companion asked the other companion that, do you know of any special etiquettes of dua, any special rules and regulation regarding dua that I can try because I'm in a big difficulty? So he said, I told him to visit the grave of the promised Messiah ﷺ at a time when no one is present there and pray there. But to make sure, now this is the important point which I will explain even more. He says to make sure not to let even the faintest thought enter your heart that the promised Messiah listens to dua, or that he even accepts them or even intercedes on your behalf. He does not do any of those things. Just remember that the only reason you're praying there, because this is the place where the angels of mercy are continuously descending. That is the only reason. Otherwise, there's no other reason to pray. So he prayed there, the other companion, and his dua was accepted. He was saved from that difficulty. Now, even though he has mentioned this, it is important to mention that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned that do not turn my grave into a place that you visit, a visitation site, a place where you visit and pray. That is not proper. Similarly, promised Messiah ﷺ has mentioned the same thing. And that is why Jamaat is very strict. If you go to Rabwa or Qadian, Jamaat is very strict about people and their behavior in graveyard. So like this companion writes that you should not even let the smallest of the thought come that the person in the grave listens to your prayer or that he can even intercede on your behalf. He has nothing to do with this. He is dead. You are praying to Allah. Your relationship is directly with Allah. But only reason you can pray there is because it is a place where angels are descending all the time. So this is a very important point, and that is why normal people, if a normal person asks me a question, can we do dua for ourselves and go to graveyard? I will be very hesitant to answer him because it is these kind of things which lead towards shirk. And promised Messiah والسلام, came to remove shirk. So it should be very, very clear to all the members who are listening that this does not mean that the person who's in the grave can help you in any regard in matter of the acceptance of prayer. But graveyards are a place where a person's heart is especially inclined towards God. Why? Because of seeing the dead people around them and because angels of mercy are descending there. So that is why you can pray there, but you have to be very careful not to do any kind of shirk. Then other places he mentioned is Baitul Zikr in Qadian. Number 4, in the company of the righteous people. And he quotes the same hadith which I told you earlier, that humul qawmul julasa la yashka jalisuhum, that they are special people. Uh, uh, a person in their company can never be unfortunate. So when you're sitting in the company of the righteous people or such scholar who are uh, alim ba amal, meaning that their actions are in accordance with the knowledge, then you should pray and your prayers will be accepted. Number 5, at a place where previous prayers have been accepted. That any place that you have experienced the signs of acceptance of prayer before, you should pray again there. And he writes that certain Sufiya, certain awliya, they used to save those mats, those sujada, where their prayers were accepted, as a sign of gratitude to Allah, as a sign of love for Allah. So when you put down the same sujada again, your heart will be inclined towards Allah. Number 6, whenever you see a special sign of mercy of Allah, of grace and beneficence of Allah. And the example that he has given is the example of Sayyidina Zakaria alayhi salatu wasalam, when he asked Hazrat Maryam alayhi salam, the mother of Jesus, when she was sitting alone in her chamber praying to Allah, and she had some food. So Hazrat Zakaria asked her, where did you get this food? So she replied, this is from Allah. Huwa min indillah. And then Hazrat Zakaria was so touched by this example that look at this small girl. At that time, her age was probably 11 or 12 years old. And look at this small girl. She's praying to Allah. And when I ask her where this food come from, she's saying it came from Allah. Hazrat Zakaria did not have any children. He was very old. And his wife was barren. She could not have children anymore. But seeing this sign of Allah, his heart was full of love for Allah, that, oh Allah, also give me a child who will be like this. And Allah accepted his prayer. It says there, Hunalika da'a Zakaria. That right there and then, Hazrat Zakaria alayhi salatu wasalam started praying because he saw the sign of Allah, of the grace of Allah. So his prayer was accepted, and as a result, he was blessed with Hazrat Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salatu wasalam, who was a very holy prophet of Allah. Number seven, wherever 40 people are gathered to remember Allah, it is mentioned in a hadith, such collective dua of 40 believers will not be rejected. So in the same way, number 8, Jalsa Salana, or any place where so many believers have gathered, it is a great place to do dua. Number 9, in a jungle or a place of solitude where there is no one else around you, complete silence, so you should do dua there and your dua will be accepted. And number 10, he mentions that my personal experience is that not only in the place of silence, not only in a jungle, but also in a place where everyone is busy celebrating and dancing and cheering and busy in material world and worldly pursuits. So for example, on the New Year night, or for example, where everyone is celebrating some kind of fiesta, at that time, if you pray, your prayers will be accepted. So he tells a story that one time, he says 13 to 14 years ago, long time ago, he went to a place, and he said the companions who were with me, they were not religious at all. So much so that I doubt that they even prayed salat on the day of Eid. So he said, with such kind of companions, I went to a city, and we were living in a house of a Hindu. And in that city, there was a very special fiesta that was taking place. And that fiesta was not a regular every year fiesta, it was a very special fiesta, which he said, if I missed that chance, we would never see that kind of celebration festival in our entire life. He said that I learned that the Hindu person whose house we were staying in, he will not be attending that festival. So he said, I asked the people that why is he not attending? So he said that I have made a vow, I have made a promise that every day I will do worship at a certain time, and I will not see the face of any other person before that time. So that is why I'm not going. So he said, my heart, Hazrat Qazi Zahuruddin Sahib, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he writes that my heart was very touched that everyone in this city will be at that festival. Am I not even like this Hindu? So he said at that place, water was very scarce. There was not enough water. So I used the water which we were saving for drinking to perform wudu. And then he said, I started doing dua. And in my dua, I prayed for certain things, and Allah Ta'ala accepted my prayer. So at a time when everyone is busy in worldly pursuit, in dancing, in celebrating, at that time, those people who remember Allah, their prayers are specially accepted. So Jazakumullah Ta'ala Asanul Jaza, I will stop here. Tomorrow I will continue this topic and discuss some other etiquettes of dua. Today we discuss certain times and places in which our dua is accepted a lot. Tomorrow, inshallah, I will talk about certain other etiquettes of prayer that we should keep in mind when we do dua. So Jazakumullah Ta'ala Asanul Jaza. I'm sorry my dars have been going long, so I'm not giving time to anyone to ask any question. But inshallah, I will try to keep them short in the future. So please focus on dua in these last few days of the month of Ramadan. May Allah Ta'ala enable me and enable all of us to do so. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad wa barik wa sallim innaka hamidun majid. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.